Welcome to Prepper Nation. I am John. This is the rundown. This is our afternoon show. We're probably only going to be able to do this once or twice a week, though, folks. It's just really, really tough to put out a morning video Monday through Friday and then turn around the same afternoon, because that means pretty much the entire day I'm watching the replay at a certain time. I'm going through comments at a certain time. So it'll be a couple of times a week. YouTube is like 1/10 of my life. I just got a lot of other stuff going on. Uh, but we'll do the rundown centered around the videos where there are tons of comments, tons of controversy, like the video this morning. So, yeah, a lot of comments during the live stream this morning, and a lot of comments after the fact. And we're going to go to the live chat first. Now, we were talking about sleeper cells and the great replacement theory, which is not a theory at this point. Replacement is happening. So, the live chat, first and foremost here, atropia. We call them sleeper cells. I don't think they're asleep anymore. I don't either. And I think we are going to see some violence. We've already seen some, right? We've seen these mass protests and there's some violence popping up here and there. They're going to cause some chaos for sure. But to this morning's point, they don't really have to. Um, I do believe a lot of these people are here by design. Now, y'all can debate that all you want to. That's fine, but I think a lot of it is done by design. When you get into these peaceful protests for a minute, when you've got pallets of bricks and stuff, and you've got medics at the rear, and they're moving almost like a military unit at the rear, that takes coordination and that takes money, right? So there are people behind these movements and these massive peaceful protests that are funding the things, and they know exactly what they're doing. Of course, I'm looking at the vampires in Switzerland, specifically Soros. When I say that, hunt outdoors. Hard to replace 330 million with 30 million. Just saying. I understand where you're coming from, hunt outdoors, but that's being short-sighted in my opinion. Think about a 10-year plan or a 15-year plan. All right. Think about how many people have been replaced and how much this country has changed over the past 10 or 15 years. Now imagine the United States 10 or 15 years from now, when we have millions of people every year coming across the border. It's only a matter of time before uh, the people like us that are supposed to be here legally, it's only a matter of time before we are replaced. And again, I think it's just being a little short-sighted, saying, well, it's only 30 million, it's not a huge problem. It's turning into a huge problem, I would argue. Matt Rodolph. I tell people 9/11 was the end of the world as we knew it. Um, I love this comment. Excellent comment, because 9/11 really, of course, we didn't know it at the time, Matt, but 9/11 really, looking back, is for me too. And that's the point when things really fell off of a cliff here in the United States and started to change for the worse. And I've maintained, I've said this before in other videos, but I maintain the position that 9/11 was the opening stages of a war against the United States of America. And I think, that was just the opening stage. And ever since then, we've seen an attack against the United States of America in different ways, whether it's political correctness, whether it's wokeness, whether it's, buying up land near our military installations, whether it's foreign countries buying up influence in universities and things like this. It's a coordinated strike, and it has been, again, to your point, since 9/11. Mimi, I love the name. 95% of commercials that you are seeing are for drugs, like pharmaceutical companies. And it varies. It does vary. We were talking about commercials this morning. It does vary quite a bit, based on the channel that you're watching, the programming that you're watching. I've noticed the same thing. Like if I'm watching, because I watch Gunsmoke and of course the Andy Griffith Show. If I'm watching stuff like this, I'm getting hit with reverse mortgage commercials. I'm getting hit with, signing up for AARP and pharmaceutical ad after pharmaceutical ad. It's targeted marketing. If I'm watching, I don't, but if I were to go over and were to watch MTV, I'm probably going to be hit with ads for social media companies and stuff. But the point is, if you're not watching classic TV at this point, if you're just watching, what is it called? Primetime TV or something like that. I don't watch a lot of TV in that way, but if you're watching primetime TV or primetime programming, a lot of the channels, if as people pointed out this morning, they're starting to show up in different languages. And they're just not angled toward us anymore by design. None of that stuff is random. You know what I mean? It's all by design. Briar Patch, my goodness, this was an excellent comment. Government, mainstream media, colleges, and social media are bringing it all together. So, Briar Patch, I think what he's saying is government, mainstream media, colleges, social media, they're all being used as as a means to influence people, as a means of propaganda. And I could not agree more. Um, the government itself, if you go to the White House and you put out that they'll put out statements and things on orders and things that Biden has signed in meetings and notes from meetings and stuff like that. If you go over there and you read through it, it reads like a textbook on diversity and inclusion. It feels like you're being trained in diversity and inclusion. It's word salad for the most part. Maybe Kamala Harris is writing it, I don't know, but the government is using propaganda. That's nothing new. They've been using that since, the beginning of time pretty much. You can even say that the great Thomas Paine, who who sparked revolution, it was also propaganda. Propaganda, for me, is anything that exists to make you feel a certain way, to influence your feelings and your position on things one way or another. When I say propaganda, it's not necessarily always a bad thing. If we had a new Thomas Paine and this Thomas Paine could influence a new revolution, I would look at that as a great thing, to be honest with you. But you got to have enough people that want revolution, right? Can't have a Thomas Paine if there's no spirit of freedom, spirit of America in the air. Colleges for sure, but just to add to this morning briar patch, a lot of people, the point I was trying to make this morning is they think, and I'll see this in comments. Well, schools aren't that bad. I can remember going through high school. A lot of people think that high schools are the same as they were when we went, or high schools haven't changed since the days of the Porky's movies or, Grease or something like that. And they're just totally different. It looks like high school on another planet compared to that. So yeah, there's propaganda coming out there and also on social media, suppression of voices and algorithms and stuff like that. We see it every day. Um, and this is again propaganda. There's a reason that you can't find many of the prepping channels. There are a few, but if you type it in, you're always going to get hit with the same 3 or 4 major creators because these 3 or 4 major creators never rock the boat, and they're there doing the things that YouTube wants them to do. Everybody else, we're kind of hard to find, especially old Prepper Nation. But it is what it is. T-Raz, they will force us out of our homes with taxes. They're already doing that. That's a great comment. I was saying this morning, think about it. And I've been in thought. Let me just say, I've been in thought on a comment that came in. We'll get to that at the end. It shook me up a little bit, to be honest with you, but we'll get to that. T-Ras, again, they will force us out of our homes with taxes. It's going to be done to farmers first, and it has been done to farmers. And then they're going to come after people that have a lot of land because you have to have expansion. If you're gonna bring illegals in and let them stay, they've gotta have room to grow, right? They've gotta have room to expand and to become part of the United States of America, whether we like it or not. And so we can't have landowners that own 200 acres. It just doesn't make sense with the population and stuff like this. So, number one, we're going to see landowners be taxed out of their land, to your point. And second, I think a lot of your very low population, like your Wyomings, for example, they're going to start to see huge illegal immigration problems. Again, to yesterday's point, running out of places to run and hide. At some point we got to face the music here. Hunter Moon, let it turn. Love the comment. Is a Red Dawn reference. Patrick Swayze, I think, is the one that said that, right? Jed, he's saying, let it turn. Let this anger that you have, uh, hold it, let it turn into something useful. The only issue, Hunter Moon, is useful against who? Who is the actual enemy here? Part of me says our own government. Not the government itself, but the bureaucrats that have sold us down the river and lined their pockets. Um, our question this morning was, again, who's going to be living in your home within 50 years? And many of you, myself included, I feel the same way. You worry about your kids and eventually your grandkids, and what this country is going to look like for them. Bureaucrats don't care. They're chasing money. They're getting rich off of it, so they really don't care. Um, but let it turn toward who? Do we look at the UN? Do we look at the WEF? Do we look at a foreign power? Because I know that there's a manifesto out there by China, uh, talking about how they're going to sack the United States within a certain amount of time. So we don't have a lot of friends, internationally speaking, the United States. So I just want to explain before we get into the replay crowd what the purpose of this video was this morning. Again, I knew, and I said this at the beginning of this morning's video, I knew it was going to rub some people the wrong way and it was going to be unpopular and it was going to make people uncomfortable. But that's what I was going for. I wanted to make people uncomfortable. I wanted people to be thinking about stuff that they typically don't think about, because when we get comfortable, we get complacent. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like, I know this is weird, and then I'll move on, but I kind of feel like, after you've had that big Thanksgiving meal, since we got Thanksgiving coming up, and you just want to kick back in the recliner and you want to relax, right? I feel like there are too many people here in the United States of America who are relaxed and who are not really coming to terms with the reality of the situation. And this is part of the problem. This is what's led to complacency. But anyway, to the replay crowd, who I might add, replay crowd, y'all are killing it when it comes to the thumbs up. We aren't getting that many during the live premieres. I don't know why. I don't really ask for them anymore other than at the beginning of the video. But for whatever reason, we'll have 1,200 people in there and 300 thumbs up, which makes the channel very hard to find. But again, the replay crowd has been killing it. They've been throwing down 900,000 plus thumbs up after the fact. So I truly appreciate that. Mama's Homesteading. Let's see here. Mama's Homesteading. Um, so this was a longer comment. I condensed it down, ma'am. Hopefully that's okay. But she was saying she works in a school system. She has 2 kids in the school system, and it's not the 1950s anymore. There's a serious parenting problem here in the United States of America. And there is, I totally agree. I feel like this comment came from my wife or something, to be honest with you, because she works in a school system. We have 2 kids in the school system, and she also sees this every day. Uh, it's weird because I'm in quote unquote Mayberry, the town that inspired Andy Griffith. And so obviously they're playing Andy Griffith nonstop in this area. It's a great show. But as you watch it, it almost seems like a documentary. I get that it was for entertainment only, but during that time, there's a lot of realism in the show. That's how parenting was done. If you lied to somebody, the belt came off, you got wore out, you learned right from wrong. Um, I imagine it was a very tough upbringing, but people were tougher for it. And it just seems like night and day compared to what we're seeing now, parenting style. There are a lot of grandparents, at least in my little bubble, there are a lot of grandparents and extended family raising kids because the parents are either in jail or they skip town or they're just not competent and they're not able to raise their own kids. A lot of baby daddies running around. It's crazy. Um, it's crazy to think that we went from a time, again, the Andy Griffith Show, of course, is fiction, but it kind of symbolizes that time period. You know what I mean? People say, well, the families back then on these shows, these cheesy shows, they're way too perfect. But most families were that way back then, I think. And now, I mean, degradation of society. Our values have fallen off the cliff. American Distant. The only place I will fight is on the homeland. I will not fight a banker's war. I'm 100% with you on that. And I don't care who likes it. I don't care who calls me a coward or a draft odds or you have no honor. I don't care. I really don't. In order to fight for America, I want to do that in America. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to Ukraine to fight for America. America's not really fighting for me right now anyway. So I'd prefer to be here to fight for my family and my local community and all of that. I give a rat's rear end about Joe Biden and his wishes. Selena Rose, the culture of the 50s was different. It built America. People refuse to see it's changed. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, the culture of the 50s, it just seems like a different country, and I'm not one of these people that fears change. Okay. I think change can be good, but when you look at the 1950s, wasn't a perfect country. America had its issues. That's for daggone sure. But in comparison to 2023, is this a safer country and have things got better for the average American? Or is it less safe and have things got worse for the average American? That's how I look at it. And so I don't fear change, but I'm also going to point to the change and I'm going to say it's changed for the worse. It has changed for the worse. But the real disservice here is the people that are their minds are still stuck there. I feel like they're asleep at the wheel, so to speak. Deron Foreman, to summarize, sorry, my handwriting sucks. To summarize, there are too many distractions for America to be saved. I'm not saying that. There are plenty of distractions. I don't think it's over for the United States of America. I think the question is what comes next? Because the fight is no longer about the replacement. Um, Again, our replacements are here, but we're fighting for the soul of America moving forward. Um, yeah. So, there's always hope. There's always hope. But again, you can't have people stuck with the mindset in the 1950s or 60s because it ain't that time period anymore. People really need to wake up and understand where we're at in 2023. Good comment. Nancy, tech additions, I'm sorry, tech addictions are the ultimate weapon. And I think she was talking about how we've lost the battle with complacency. Absolutely. When you have 20 somethings out here who are more worried about clothes that they wear on an avatar on a video game than they are getting their own life together um that's not me dunking on all 20-year-olds. Some of them have their heads screwed on right. They're out here, they're trying to build their credit up. They've got great work ethic, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them live their life in technology. 24/7. Like that's literally their life. And it's just no good. Again, it leads to complacency. Laurel Wolf, and this was a popular comment both in live chat and with the replay crowd. Trump actually talked about deportations, mass deportations instantly. Maybe. I know he's talked about it. And I think that to his credit, people thought I was hating on Trump this morning. I wasn't hating on Trump, okay? To his credit, I think Donald Trump understands that's how you save the country. But you have to understand, okay, Laurel and the folks that left that comment. Number one, Trump was in office for 4 years. He deported criminals, people that got caught, that weren't supposed to be here, plus they had a criminal record. He was able to say, "We got to get them out of the country because they're outright criminals." But they weren't exactly mass deporting people. Number one, number two, he's going to be limited as commander in chief anyway. Remember at the beginning of the pandemic when this thing first started, before it was actually declared a pandemic, he was trying to stop people from coming here from other nations. He was trying to block that and he got defeated in court. So you have to understand if Trump gets in there, if you think he's about mass deportations, please vote for the man. All right. But the moment he gets in there, he's going to be fighting the machine once again. And they're going to be taking him to court and they're going to be filing injunctions at every stop. So I don't know that he could get away with mass deporting people, even if he wanted to as president of the United States. And I just think that's a huge problem. Um, but again, to his credit, he is talking about it, whereas other candidates, I've not heard him talk about it. DeSantis, maybe, just because I haven't heard him talk about it doesn't mean that he hasn't. But any president that goes in is going to have a very tough time because Congress is going to fight him. The swamp is going to fight him tooth and nail on that. They always do. Finally, Ram Thar the Great. This comment has had me thinking all day. It backfired on me, folks, right? I did the video this morning. I said, yep, I want something where people are thinking for the rest of the day. You know, who's going to be living in my home 50 years from now? I didn't think that I was going to be hit with a comment that had me thinking for the rest of the day. I'm going to be thinking on this for a while, actually. Ramthar the Great said, the greatest generation, which he's talking about D-Day, fought the wrong enemy. And I'm going to be thinking about that one for a while because I do think it was the greatest generation in terms of uh, our military ever. That's not dunking on anybody. I realize people that were in Korea were tough. People that were in Vietnam were tough. Of course, back in the 1776, the Mexican American War. Veterans are tough, and they've been there and they've done that. But storming the beaches and knowing that you're going into machine guns that were nicknamed Hitler's buzzsaw couldn't have been easy. And a lot of these guys didn't realize even where they were going. They were on these ships and they didn't realize until they were almost there. Okay, we're going to France. This is it. I'm probably going to die. Today's probably my last day on earth, this sort of deal. So I do think they're the toughest. But this has me thinking about that comment because, first of all, I cannot imagine being a veteran of World War II and walking around in 2023 and seeing what this country has become. Can you imagine fighting against the ultimate evil back in the 40s only to watch your country become what it is today? Number one. Number two, prior to the Second World War, again, I try to study all sides of the war. I don't just bite on one narrative and run with it. These sides were evil. There are always two sides to every story, always. And I've seen some speeches and I've heard some speeches and some notes from some speeches that were directed toward globalists prior to World War II. And what I can tell you is though the Axis powers, obviously, they didn't have clean hands in this, but they were potentially fighting against globalists and fighting against the future that we're living in now. To a degree, I think they saw this coming, this League of Nations, this NATO, the UN, this sort of concept where everything spider webs up and we hand our powers over. So what I'm trying to say is, I know that's crazy, right? But if you're not okay with your country handing your sovereignty over to the UN, for example, this is actually part of the reason the Axis were pissed off back in the day. And it's really got me thinking. That comment shook me up a little bit because maybe we were fighting against the worst evil this world's ever seen, or maybe we were fighting the wrong enemy. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Y'all take care and God bless.